Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia Online, a congregation striving to embody courageous love, radical welcome, and deep connection. We are so grateful to be gathered this morning, remembering that our church is not a building, but is the beloved community of all of us together. I am the Reverend Molly Housh Gordon, minister of this congregation, and I'm so glad to welcome you to our community. Although we miss gathering in person on Sundays, our online services have given us an opportunity to connect with people we might not have met otherwise. We always wish to welcome in particular any members of the Jefferson City UU Fellowship joining us, as well as all of you visiting from Missouri or beyond. We have a few comments about protocol for today's online worship. We are in Zoom and streaming live on Facebook. For those of you with us on Zoom, we are in webinar mode, so we can't hear or see you. Feel free to eat your breakfast in your PJs. Don't worry if things are noisy where you are. Things may be noisy where I am. You will be able to say hello and interact with the service through the chat feature on Zoom and the comments on Facebook. If you're with us on Zoom, make sure you select everyone so we can all see your comment. Otherwise, it'll just go to the panelists. And this will be particularly useful during the time when we share our joys and sorrows. We also have a few notes about accessibility. We will, as soon as we remember to turn them on, there we go, be using Zoom's native auto captioning service, which means you will see automatically generated subtitles at the bottom of your screen. You will have several options for these if you click the closed caption button on Zoom. If you do not wish to see subtitles or find them distracting, you can use the hide subtitles option to turn them off. If you prefer them to appear as a live transcript at the side of the screen, you can choose view full transcript. We know that auto captioning is never entirely accurate, but we hope it will be close. We will also be providing spoken descriptions of the videos and images we use. And we'd like to invite you to please contact us if you have any other accessibility or inclusion needs that we can strive to meet in our online gathering. You can email me at minister@uucomo.org. If this is your first time worshiping with us, we'd like to invite you to fill out a digital visitor's card at the link provided in the chat. Let us know a little bit about you so that we can let you know a little bit about us. I'd also like to thank the folks that make our online worship possible. Thank you to our online usher, Linda Valentine, our worship associate, Sam Otten, and to our amazing staff, April Rodagero running slides, religious educator, Jamila Batchelder, music director, Jeremy Wagner, and pianist, Hans Bridger Harris. And today we have a very special guest joining us to do some teaching, and we'd like to thank Dr. Chris Lawrence from HeartSpace Clinic for joining us today to teach us about staying grounded. Let us now settle in to this time and place together with the help of our prelude. This week's prelude is Malagueña, Girl from Malaga, played by classical guitarist Michael Lucarelli. The video is set at the Bonneville Salt Flats of Utah. The artist, a man with pale skin and a white beard, dressed all in black and wearing a black flat cap and sunglasses, is pictured walking to and then sitting on a wooden cafe chair with his guitar. He is in the middle of the salt flat, which looks like a cross between sand and snow. Mountains can be seen in the distance, and the video alternates between close shots of the guitar being played and wide shots of the surrounding scenery. Please enjoy.
Our opening words are by the Reverend Teresa Soto. And when I first read them yesterday, after this week's attempted coup on our government, I found myself taking a deep breath at last, after days of clenched belly fear and clenched jaw outrage. Let us begin our worship with a literal or metaphorical deep breath. And with these words. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like a North Star, and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know the way to the world which we dream of. And by covenant and the movement forward of one right action, then the next, we know that one day we will arrive at home. May it be so. Our gathering hymn is number 1009, Meditation on Breathing. This song was written by Sarah Dan Jones on September 11th, 2001, and has been returned to as a source of grounding and strength by many Unitarian Universalists and others through many challenging events in the decades since it was written. In this video, the song is led by the choir of the First Unitarian Society of Denver. Pictured are a dozen or more choir members, each in their own square. We invite you to sing along from home as you are moved.
breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
We come now to our chalice lighting and words of affirmation. As we share an image of our church chalice on the screen, you may wish to light a candle at home or look in the chat for a digital chalice. Alice Anacheka Naisman writes, "In a time of uncertainty, when everything around us is changing constantly, each day new developments, rising numbers, changing guidelines, a different source of turmoil, when the world we live in suddenly seems upside down and topsy-turvy, we light our chalice to remind ourselves of our grounding in faith. We remember that the flaming chalice came into being as a beacon of hope during World War II, a secret symbol that offered solidarity and help. In the midst of it all, we wrap ourselves in the warm light of a familiar flame, a reminder of the strength that emerges when we come together in community." Will you please join me in lifting your voices in homes across our city, country, and world to share our weekly words of affirmation, shown on the slide and shared in the chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. In the prologue to his memoir, Walking with the Wind, the late Representative John Lewis told a story that was one of his lifelong touchstones in the work of justice and love through many seasons and eras of our history. He writes that one day, as a child, he was playing along with about 15 other children at his aunt's house when suddenly a big storm began to roll in. He writes, "Aunt Seneva was the only adult around, and as the sky blackened and the wind grew stronger, she herded us all inside. Her house was not the biggest place around, and it seemed even smaller with so many children squeezed inside. Small and surprisingly quiet. All of the shouting and laughter that had been going on earlier outside had stopped. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake. We were scared. Even Aunt Seneva was scared. And then it got worse. Now the house was beginning to sway. The wood plank flooring beneath us began to bend. And then a corner of the room started lifting up. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. None of us could. The storm was actually pulling the house toward the sky, with us inside it. That was when Aunt Seneva told us to clasp hands. Line up and hold hands, she said, and we did as we were told. Then she had us walk as a group toward the corner of the room that was rising. From the kitchen to the front of the house we walked, the wind screaming outside, sheets of rain beating on the tin roof. Then we walked back in the other direction as another end of the house began to lift up. And so it went, back and forth, 15 children walking with the wind, holding that trembling house down with the weight of our small bodies. Representative Lewis reflected further. More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over those many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another, the walls around us seeming at times as if they might fly apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed, they came together, and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was the weakest. And then another corner would lift, and we would go there. And eventually, inevitably, the storm would settle, and the house would still stand. But we knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it all over again. And we did, and we still do, all of us, you and I, children holding hands, walking with the wind.
Now, as we share an image of lit candles and our joys and sorrows stones on the screen, I'd like to invite you to bring your loving attention and compassionate presence to our community. Perhaps imagine those hands with which you join as we walk with the wind. And we will now share the joys and sorrows and prayers of our community, holding one another in heart across the distance, remembering that we are held in life's sorrows and joys alike. I will begin by sharing the joys and sorrows submitted at our website and a few prayers for our nation. And then I will invite those gathered to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. We join our hearts with Barb Tucker, who shares that she has been diagnosed with COVID-19. And not to worry, but she would appreciate all good thoughts, vibes, and prayers. She says, it just feels like strep throat or bronchitis, but stories of fatigue are not exaggerated. I'm at home in touch with my doc and don't need anything, but I appreciate your healing wishes, and we certainly send them. We join our hearts with Elaine Martin, who shares that she closed on her new house on Friday and moved furniture in on Saturday. She has a supremely lovely view and is ready to start the healing that has been so long delayed. We wish that for you, Elaine. Let us also join our hearts this morning in prayer for all who now live with the trauma of having to barricade in the Capitol building. For all who live in this country in constant fear of racist violence. Let us join our hearts this morning in prayer for all who bear the scars, inner and outer, of police brutality. For all who have been tear gassed or clubbed while protesting peacefully for freedom, and who have now seen just how capable the police are at not using deadly force when they don't want to. Let us pray this morning for all who lost their lives and were injured on Wednesday. And pray for those of us who are sick and tired of praying, who don't want to spend any energy on those whose appalling behavior has led to the loss of life, whether through violence, the spread of the virus. Let us pray for the protection of our democracy, for a strong rebuke of fascism and white supremacy, and for all who work tirelessly to build a world of greater thriving and deeper compassion for all people. And let us pledge to live those prayers with our own hands and feet and voices. I now invite your joys and sorrows and prayers in the chat. We join our hearts with Tonette and Dustin, as Dustin's father passed away yesterday, and he is in Arkansas with his family. We send our prayers and love with him. We join our hearts with Stacy, who shares joy for son Joseph turning 21 this week, and prayers for a healthy and safe semester as he heads back to school in Springfield today. We join with Sam and any who feel sorrow for family disagreements that were already strained and now may be reaching a breaking point. We join our hearts with Robin in sending her good vibes for a helpful diagnosis and decreased autoimmune systems. Healing wishes to you. We join our hearts with Lisa, who shares sorrow this morning for the passing of Auntie Gwen, joy for the peacefulness of the passing and in celebration of her life. We join our hearts with all those, joy for the Ordways, for Aunt Jerry, and all others who are getting vaccinated. And for these and so many other joys and sorrows, worries and prayers that we hold tenderly in our own hearts and in the space between us, we lift up love and light. And will you join me in prayer with the words of Anne Mason? Spirit of life and source of love, your very presence among us keeps us connected. Help us to sense that beneath our feet is the strength we need to keep us grounded. Help us to feel that behind our back is the protection we need to feel safe facing our fears. Help us to know that before our faces lies the beauty we seek to feel astounded. Help us to lift our heads high enough to be aware of the vastness of our sky and our own spirits, to help us know that within our hearts lies the love we need to complete the circle of connection in our lives. We are grateful, source of love, for this day. May we use all of these gifts, our feet, our backs, our hands and heads and hearts, to bring love into this hurting world, this world which we cherish. Amen. Our song of response is Heart Wide Open by DC area's singer-songwriter Leah Morris. The video shows the artist, a woman with brown skin and very short hair, wearing a thick black sweater and glasses with black headphones, moving along to the song. The video begins with one image of the artist and then layers side by side more images of the artist singing harmony. Eventually, there are 5 images of Leah all moving to the music, and in the center image, a young child is draped across the artist's neck. At the end, the child waves hello to the camera. We're going to put the lyrics in the chat if you catch on and want to sing along. It's quite a catchy tune. Heart Wide Open by Leah Morris.
Keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. I'm gonna keep my heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open. Though these waves wanna put, though they want me around. Though the waves wanna push me around, I'm gonna keep my heart. I'm gonna keep wide open. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open till my faith brings me back to solid ground. Until my faith brings me back to solid ground. We gotta keep our heart. We gotta keep wide open. We gotta keep our hearts wide open. Although these waves wanna put us around. Although these waves wanna push us around. We gotta keep our heart. We gotta keep wide open till our faith brings us back to solid ground. Till our faith brings us back to solid ground. Say hi.
Hi.
On Wednesday afternoon, the world witnessed the attempt of a fascist, white supremacist mob to violently overthrow our nation's democratic process and the results of our free and fair election. With horror and fear, disbelief, and perhaps traumatized numbness, we watched them desecrate our Capitol building with murderous intent, Confederate flags, guns drawn. We listened to them on video threatening the lives of our political leaders at the behest of a man who has become the current avatar for this death cult of white supremacy, this original infection in our nature's founding, always and still ravaging our communities. We watched the truth reveal itself through inaction once more, that our nation's law enforcement is charged with protecting and serving mostly whiteness. As we watched Capitol Police greet white rage and violence with selfies and open gates, we remembered that in July, federal law enforcement met Black pain and peaceful protest with tanks, snipers, and mass arrest. And we in Missouri watched our own junior senator assist in the incitement of this mob, and then watched him speak peace and unity from the other side of a false mouth only hours later. We could be forgiven if by the end of that day our heads were spinning, our hearts racing, our muscles clenched in stress or fear. In fact, my head and heart and muscles were doing all of those things. And we could certainly be forgiven if they still are. And this morning we remember that coming back to center, grounding down into the earth and our bodies and our lives is more important than ever. There is so much work to be done. At the end of Wednesday, the Movement for Black Lives posted a statement alongside a call to action on their webpage. In the statement, they reminded us, quote, "What played out today in the halls of Congress is testament to the fact that we are changing the balance of power in this country. We knew there'd be backlash. We knew that white supremacists with Trump's support would attempt to steal what we worked so hard for." And they went on to celebrate their electoral victories and commit and call us all to the ongoing fight for justice. Their headline was, "When we build power, expect resistance." And so perhaps some were shocked, but not surprised. You may barely recall that earlier on the very same morning of this fascist violence, the state of Georgia, where some rural schools still teach Confederate apologism, had elected its first African-American senator. During the attempted coup itself, the election of Georgia's first Jewish senator was confirmed. White supremacy is an ethic of control. It wants to maintain its grip on power at all costs, and our country is changing. Inexorably, our country is becoming more multicultural, more queer, more feminist, more anti-racist. Liberation organizing is making gains. And white supremacy, although still deeply embedded in our country, institutions, and lives, is feeling itself up against the ropes. When the cultures of liberation and life build power, we can expect the cultures of control and deathliness to respond with dramatic force. Resistance is to be expected, as the movement for Black lives reminds us. Violent outburst is to be expected. Perhaps even fascist insurrection is to be expected. This was not the first of it, and I both fear and expect that it will not be the last. Black liberation activist and performance artist Ron Reagan wrote and posted on Instagram on Wednesday evening a short new freedom song. He sings in a beautiful tone, "White supremacist delusion will not distract me from my freedom march. We have all we need to do what must be done for our freedom." We are in a moment of great turning, and the potential for transformation is as powerful as it has ever been. But powerful too and dangerous is its opposition. So much depends in this moment on all of us who believe in liberation and love, staying on the march despite the backlash, holding steady, staying the course, returning back to the love parade every time a roadblock or detour is thrown up in our way. This is true for us all, but I think it is especially true for those of us socialized to be white, who could so easily and traitorously fall back to sleep, who are not used to encountering such violence, who were never taught to hold this kind of tension. White folks especially need to build up our spiritual muscle to keep coming back to the march, back to community, back to our values, back to our commitments, back to the shared work of love. And to do that, we need to stay grounded. And it is the job, of course, of all of us, of every identity who believe in the transforming power of love, to keep our hearts and minds and spirits, in the words of that old song, stayed on freedom. We all have to keep coming back to this world we are building together, these values of compassion and thriving we share, this liberation we can feel in our bones. We have to keep coming back to center again and again, even as the opposition flares around us. So today, we want to share some tools with you for grounding through these times, for grounding in the service of greater love and deeper thriving for us all, even and especially in times that have our heads spinning, our hearts racing, and our muscles clenching. The vagaries of the universe, and especially the powers that be, will keep pushing us off course, but we must keep coming back. We will learn to ground ourselves for the sake of our own lives and for the sake of each other. We learn to ground ourselves for the sake of the world of thriving to which we give our hearts. After a moment of music, we will be led in learning about that grounding by Dr. Chris Lawrence, who is a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma and somatic experiencing and founder of HeartSpace Clinic, which she will describe to us in a bit. Dr. Lawrence is going to teach us some very practical grounding tools for keeping our nervous systems in the game, our bodies at the table and on the march, as we do the hard work of great turning that lies ahead of us. Our interlude is Prelude number 3 by Heitor Villalobos, performed again by Michael Lucarelli. The video pictures the same artist from the prelude in a different all-black outfit with black fedora, and he is sitting with his guitar in front of a red velvet curtain. Please enjoy.
Keep your heart.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Molly, for that introduction and for asking me to be here today. I am thrilled to be sharing a little bit about HeartSpace Clinic and a little bit about what we're learning and what we're trying to share at HeartSpace Clinic today. So HeartSpace Clinic is a nonprofit that I started about 5 years ago. And the mission is to share the growing knowledge of myself and my staff about how trauma and stress impact our bodies and how to balance that through body-centered practices. A secondary goal of HeartSpace Clinic is to de-pathologize mental health and normalize the impact of our world on our bodies and our minds. So we think about our nervous system, and one of the things that we share a great deal about is how our nervous system works, how it takes care of us by protecting us from harm, by getting us ready to defend ourselves in the face of harm, and how we can go about taking care of it. So could I have the first slide? Great, thank you. So take a minute and think about how many times this week did you say, think, or type something along the lines of, how terrifying, that's awful, how could that happen? Those people, how could they do that? I feel so powerless. I know that I said or wrote those things many times this week. And our nervous system is there to protect us from threat, but it doesn't know how to discern between real direct threat to ourselves and threat that we witness, think about, or talk about. So unless we are living in a remote cave somewhere, our individual and collective nervous systems are on alert pretty much constantly. And our job is to help our nervous systems to reset, to take a break, or to downshift, because our system won't do that on its own if it feels like the threat is constant. So that involves working not on the level of the mind or our thoughts, not on the level of feelings, but at the level of sensations. So sensations are a way to describe what we feel inside when something is happening on the outside. So for example, when I get ready to do a talk, I oftentimes feel a little bit of kind of churning or butterflies in my stomach. That's a sensation. Tension in your shoulders or tingling when you're upset or when things are settling, those are all sensations. So they're words that describe what impacts us on the inside from either adrenaline or like adrenaline spiking when we're threatened, or adrenaline settling. And so what we want to do is help the adrenaline to settle and to leave our body. So the goal is to notice what we have going on in our body and then to help that settle. So we're going to do a little practice with that today. So if everyone can just take a minute and just turn your attention, if you're multitasking, just put down what you're multitasking and just sit in your chair and just feel your back against the chair and take just a minute to look around your room. Just take in with your eyes whatever is around you. Since we're all at home, or most of us are at home, there are probably things that are familiar. So let your eyes find something in your space that's pleasant or pleasing to you. And then let your eyes just take that in. And then check in with your body and see if there's any area of tension or constriction. A place that just feels a little bit tight. Sometimes it's like a fist. Sometimes it might be like a rope that's kind of tight. Oftentimes it might be across your shoulders or in your back or in the back of your head. Just find a place that feels a little bit constricted. And then I would like for you to just shift your attention and find another place in your body that's 10 or 15% less constricted. A place that might be just slightly more open. Sometimes people find that in their lower half in their feet. Sometimes people might find that in their hands, but just find the place that's for you just slightly less constricted. And then I want you to just keep your attention on that area. Just notice what might tell you that it's less tight or more loose. Does it feel like there's more space there? Does it feel like maybe there's a little bit of movement or flow? And just watch whatever's happening internally in that area. You might notice movement. You might notice that you take a deep breath. Sometimes people notice tingling there in their hands or their feet. And then I would like you to notice your jaw and your tongue. Just shift your attention to that area and let your tongue just melt. Almost like it's kind of the consistency of honey. And just watch that happen in your mouth and your tongue. And then notice what's happening in the other parts of your body. You feel your shoulders dropping. You can check back in with that original place of tension and notice if that has changed. And if it has, can you just watch whatever's happening? Be really curious about how your body is settling. And how that's showing up in your body. You might notice if your stomach is settling. You might notice if there's some tingling in your hands or your feet or your head. And just let that sink in. And if you start to get distracted, go back to your tongue and encourage it to melt and just kind of let it rest on the bottom of your mouth again. You might notice your body feeling kind of heavy. You might notice feeling somewhat tired. And so we're going to watch that happen for about 30 more seconds. And when you're ready, you can just take your attention very slowly into the room around you. Don't move too quickly. Just let yourself move at the pace that your body feels like it wants to move. And just go back to looking around your room and taking in your space, finding that thing that's maybe particularly pleasant or pleasing to look at. So in order to help our body settle, we believe it's really important to work on the level of sensations, because our nervous system will get rid of the adrenaline that's accumulated in our body if we give it the right conditions. And if we're thinking or talking or even talking about feelings, we're above the level of sensations. And if we can just go to the sensations, and the two there are three tricks that I used in that demonstration. One is what we call orienting, which is just taking in your space, especially if it's a safe space. Letting your eyes take it in and noticing in your body what happens when you let your eyes take in your space. The second one was working with sensations and finding a tense spot and then finding a slightly less tense spot. And when your attention goes to the slightly less tense spot, it allows that adrenaline to follow that and start to dissipate. And when we spend time watching that process happen, watching that opening or settling or even the tingling, it just encourages more of that, and it lets that settling sink in. And that's essentially shifting your body from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state. And then the third tool that I used was working with the jaw and the tongue. It's pretty amazing how much is held in our jaw. And that tool of letting your tongue melt basically signals to your body all is well. It is safe. And then your body kicks into, okay, I can shift out of this sympathetic activated state. So it's basically using our body to tell our nervous system what's what, instead of thinking and talking about stressful events, which basically tells our nervous system it's time to be afraid, it's time to be on alert. This is basically doing the opposite. And if we can do this 2 or 3 times a day, it teaches our nervous system what goes up can go down, can settle. So could I have the next slide, please? So this is just a little bit about HeartSpace Clinic. We have some free services that we offer through support by the county. And we really feel passionate about what we're teaching and what we're learning. And so if anyone has an interest in working with us individually or having us come speak at more length to a group, please contact me at heartspaceclinic.org. Thank you, Molly, for letting me be here. There's Margot. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lawrence, for your time and wisdom with us today. We need these tools now more than ever.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Our next hymn is 1031, May I Be Filled with Loving Kindness. This is a musical setting of the Buddhist metta meditation, which invites us to extend compassion first to ourselves, then toward others, then toward all beings. The song is led in this video by Elena Hemingway and Brian Kenny of the Kitsap UU Fellowship. The video pictures a series of calming images: a lit candle, falling snow, rolling waters with mountains in the distance, then ocean waves at sunset, and finally sunlight filtering down through a stand of green trees. The lyrics are layered on top of the images. We will also put the lyrics in the chat and invite you to sing along from home.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole. Oh, may we be whole.
Now is the time in our service when we join in the spiritual practice of generosity, guiding our hearts away from the fear and scarcity all around us, and remembering that one way that we ground ourselves in community and in gratitude for the gifts of our lives is by sharing as we are able. This morning, we invite your support of our congregation's mission to love courageously through radical welcome, deep connection, and helping to heal the world. The giving link will be posted in the chat, and we invite you to enjoy another song from classical guitarist Michael Lucarelli with his original composition, Echoes of the Past. In this video, the artist, in the same black clothes and hat, sits with his guitar in front of a draped, crinkly white fabric softly lit with a purple light.
Our closing words are from the Reverend Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage. For deep down, there is another truth. You are not alone. Even now, especially now, you are not alone. We are with you across the distance. Go in blessing, dear ones, and be a blessing to a world that needs our care. And let us sing our benediction.
Not leaving one another, may we give of hand and heart. Let us share our benediction, lovingly before we part.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you so much to Dr. Lawrence for joining us and teaching us tools that we need this morning. We would love to see you all in coffee hour. Anybody who would like a chance to see one another's faces and chat and catch up, we spend a moment saying hello and then go into breakout rooms to check in more deeply with one another. The meeting ID is on the slide. The link is in the chat. And we'd love to see those of you who would like to join us for coffee hour. I want to let you know that next week we have a guest in the pulpit for Martin Luther King Jr. Sunday. Dr. C.W. Dawson will be here with us, and I am sure he will have a word to say to us and to the world right now. Please do join us next week for that. His newest course with us, Race, Law, and the Body Politic, begins on Tuesday. Check out our website for the link. We'd love to see you there as well. And thank you all so much for joining us. Have a grounded week.